Where have all the hormones gone? Hello, this is Dr. Paul Stoller, and this video is based on an article I wrote for a peer-reviewed journal. This is part 3 of Oxytocin, the bringer of creation and destruction. A study was done recently that showed that women who were not on birth control pills would be attracted to men whose genetics complemented their genetics. They could literally smell the genetics of a potential partner. If the woman had a mutation on the MTFHR gene, for example, she would find a man attractive if he did not have that same mutation. What was found was the women on birth control pills could not pick, or should I say they could not smell, the men who complemented their genetics. I submit that when these gals get married to the wrong genetic guy and they go off their birth control pills, they will have little to no attraction to this man anymore. They might even be repulsed, and they certainly will not want to bear his children. Women were sold birth control pills as a form of liberation, but the result was sedation, not liberation. Many men will state that their partner is not the woman they married, nor the woman they fell in love with, because in a very real sense that gal is gone, checked out. She may look the same and have the same voice, but that person has been, in a sense, hormonally lobotomized because her frontal cortex is not working well, at least not in the context of their current relationship, which will be perceived as being the source of her problems. Men are unaware that when they date or fall in love or get married, they are, in a sense, interfacing with someone with a specific level of certain hormones. In other words, they are on a date with or make a commitment to someone with a set of hormones in a certain ratio. Unbeknownst to most, if those hormones shift, then a new version of the gal will present herself with a different hormone balance or more likely imbalance. She literally won't be the same person. One mundane example here is how crampy, irritable, and moody many women get the second half of their menstrual cycle. Some get near homicidal. Many suffer with this burden until menopause, but for most it is because they are making insufficient levels of the hormone progesterone, and if they only supplemented progesterone in the second half of their cycle, the severe cramps and emotional lability would vanish, or at least be much milder. Because of endocrine disrupting chemicals we are exposed to, a lot of gals don't make enough progesterone in the second half of their cycles. This is a real conundrum because most women are loyal to their feelings, not their relationships, without ever understanding they are letting hormone levels make their choices for them. So, entering into a committed relationship is a real gamble for men, even though they consciously understand none of this, because hormonal changes could change the apple of their eye into a kiwi, a grape, or an orange in another phase of the relationship. This is a gamble many men are no longer willing to take. On some level, it is being recognized that the hormones females have to navigate can dramatically alter their personalities to the point that they are not psychologically recognizable as the same person. As her hormones shift, the woman may develop a pervasive sense of victimhood, fear she has lost herself in her relationship, fears she is missing out, or that she feels trapped, or her partner is distant, boring, predictable, or unsafe. She may feel stuck, unhappy, or in a cage, almost always pointing to something outside of self as being responsible, usually their romantic partner. But no one is responsible for anyone else's happiness, an ignored truth. And the catch-22 is even if someone outside oneself could make one feel happy, it certainly won't be the man who is perceived as being the cause of the problem in the first place. This hypothetical woman will do everything she can to get out of that relationship or marriage that isn't making her feel safe, fulfilled, or happy, even if that means infidelity, which, interesting enough, will cause her oxytocin levels to go up, and she will feel calm and euphoric and quite justified in having affairs or ending her long-term relationship or marriage without any idea she is being run by a hormone. But there is something else that will run interference. True, lifelong monogamy doesn't really exist with primates, although some species come very close. Humans are not one of them. Just as human males are programmed to seek out young and attractive women for novel sexual experiences, human females are hardwired with hypergamy. Hypergamy is a fancy way of saying part of their consciousness is always looking for a better situation for themselves, usually a wealthier partner. It is a holdover from our hunter-gatherer days, where one's life could literally depend on hooking up with the most powerful male in the tribe. It may be buried deep in the subconscious, but it is there. It is always there. And it comes out of hiding when oxytocin levels fall and fight or flight kicks in. One feels very justified violating vows, trust, and loyalty to pursue a hormonal high that makes them feel alive. Where there is an emotion, there is a neurotransmitter coupled with it, and if we decide to be led around by our emotional chemistry in an unconscious way, then that really will lead to unhappiness. If the gal has created a monkey branch relationship, an affair, she might feel that it makes her feel like herself, and it may feel like she has found her dream man. But it is all an illusion doomed to collapse, because she is unconsciously being led around by her hormones as if she had a ring in her nose, and oxytocin, in this example, was pulling her in only one direction. Keep doing whatever is making more oxytocin, and don't stop. That underlying oxytocin deficiency is still there, but temporarily mitigated, and when the novelty of a new relationship wears off, and the dopamine and oxytocin crash, she will repeat the dysfunctional scenario regardless of how much money her new partner has. No matter how nice a home she has, or if she has children, none of this may matter. Neither she or her ex-partners will ever know that it was all due to an oxytocin deficiency, and while one can apply oxytocin to the situation, at that point it won't, in all likelihood, allow on the love light to be turned back on once it has been turned off. The only practical application of this knowledge is to supplement oxytocin proactively, but I doubt that would ever catch on for years, or even decades, because few, if any, understand what I just told you. Now, why didn't this phenomenon seem to happen in older generations? Well, often there were extended families and close-knit communities. There were more defined gender roles. Interacting with that extended family and having the support from a supportive community kept oxytocin levels high enough to prevent what I just described. There were role models and safety nets. We don't have that now. Today we have this one man and this one woman, and the truth is that is not enough people to pull this off. This sounds cliche, but it takes a village to support marriages or long-term relationships. In the past, there were also more individuals in Western society that had a strong spiritual foundation. We have been living through a very dystopian period where both men and women have lost their moral compasses. This isn't about attending church or temple. It means people knew they weren't the center of the universe and couldn't just do or think anything they wanted with impunity. There were more gals who had better relationships with parents and family members. They had interests and hobbies and didn't rely on their relationship to fulfill all their needs. Family goals were more aligned than they are today. The problem with losing one's moral compass is that nature abhors a vacuum, so instead of a moral compass, you get a mental illness in its place. And where there is mental illness, there is often self-medication. 1 in 6 women in the U.S. are on antidepressants, and with that comes potential sexual dysfunction, further complicating an already delicate situation. And what has been found is 25% of women with anxiety disorders or major depression will self-medicate. 3 out of every 5 teenage girls suffer from persistent sadness and hopelessness. 1 in 5 actually have been diagnosed with a mental illness. To use non-medical jargon, this situation is pretty fussed up, and while we understand these quality of life issues and relationship issues can drive substance abuse, the medical community has little to offer. In the past, women who wanted children often had some experience in helping their mothers with siblings. Not so much today, where too many gals have no idea what they are signing up for. Motherhood is loaded with pitfalls, and when the reality of motherhood sinks in, it can be a shock. But were they ever meant to navigate this without the support of close relatives? There was also more emotional maturity than we see today as well. People had more respect for each other. Not saying the past was perfect, because it was far from perfect, but something has been lost. By the way, marriage is not about romance. Marriage is a legal construct, and its original purpose was humble and simple. Bring a man and woman together to procreate and have children. That was all it was meant to do, other than stabilize society, so we could be better controlled. The marriage was usually arranged and viewed as a job more than anything else, and that job was to keep the family unit together. But we naively enter into this legal institution knowing nothing about it, its history, what is required, or what a marriage can and cannot do. Many women want to get married for the financial safety net it usually provides, but have no intention of being a wife. which they have been indoctrinated to believe is a form of servitude. And the big clincher is, we really don't know who this other person is, nor if they are mature enough not to be run by their hormones alone. I am not saying most men know who they are, but at least they don't have massive fluctuations in hormones running interference. Alas, love is blind, and we think the other person is who we think they are, not who they actually are. And of course, unless we have had sisters in our families, men are clueless about how hormones can rule the roost and run the show. Men and women are miserable because they are not being true to their authentic selves. They have followed an algorithm set up by our culture to be considered a valuable member of society. There is a lot of pressure to be something that we are not. But if we don't know who we are, and most don't, if we are not grounded in our bodies, we will not be authentic human beings. We will just be a vessel for our egos. Nothing is more attractive than a man who has mapped out a vision for his life and follows through with that vision. But when we don't know who we are, we will make decisions based on false assumptions that are not in our best interest, and we will be miserable. What was written on the entrance to the temple at Delphi? Know thyself, or nothisiauton. It is a piece of the ancient wisdom now almost lost to time. The steps to discover one's true self are different for everyone, but the common denominator is giving yourself the space for reflection and introspection, where you can ask yourself if you are living a life consistent with who you are versus living a life you think others think you should be living. This is hard to do when you are miserable or mentally ill, and some people just don't have the psychological tools to carry this off, but it can be done. This is the end of part 3.